Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Waxwing Beginner Guitar Series. I am Elliot, and today we're going to talk about intervals on the guitar neck. So what is an interval? Well, an interval is pretty much just the space between any two notes. So if we have one note, and then we have another note coming after it, or played in tandem with it at the same time in a harmony, we call that an interval. Now there are loads of different kinds of intervals, and we're going to review exactly what those are and the ones that show up in the major scale that we had just learned in the last video. Okay, so we're going to apply this starting just from the C note, the beginning of our C major scale that we were talking about in the last video on the micro scale boxes of the C major scale. All right, so starting here is our root. We don't have to think about it as being a root because an interval is just the distance between two notes, but we're going to start off of C just for ease. So the first interval we have to talk about is the interval of a second. So a second is just where we go from any one note, either a half step above, right? So from C to D flat, or from C to D natural. So those are two different kinds of seconds, right? We have a minor second interval, which is a half step, and a major second interval, which is a whole step, okay? That can look like this, minor second, or major second, right? And the first two notes of the major scale off of C, D is a major second away from C, right? So the first interval in the major scale there is a major second away. So that major second interval can also look like this, where we play the fourth string open. Okay? All right, the next interval is the interval of a third. So if we start on C and we skip the second, then we're going to end up on some kind of third. Now, in the major scale, that third is a major third, right? It's very important. That major scale is somewhat defined by that third scale degree being a major third and not a minor third. If it was a minor third, it would sound like this. It has a little bit more of a serious tone, right? So in this case, from C to E natural is a major third, and it looks like this on the neck. Now a major third is going to look like this in most places on the guitar neck as well. Okay, you can play it here, play it up here, off of the D note, on the E note. You can change strings. This was B and D sharp. This was G and B. We can play it off of the fourth string, G and B here. We can even play it off of the B string, and there we have E and G sharp, which is a major third. The only place that it's not going to work like this is off of the B string. Big surprise, because the B string is tuned already in a major third. So the major third on the B string, if we play from G, those two open strings are already a major third interval, right? And so we can simply do a bar, and we're playing a major third. We can also finger it like this. So that's the only place that it's going to be different, when we're playing from the G string to the B string, or the third string to the second string. All right, so if this is a major third, and that can be played almost everywhere on the fretboard, this is a minor third. Right? We take that third and we flatten it, so we're playing C and E flat. Now this minor third, similar to the major third, can be figured in most places on the fretboard, except between the third and second strings. Right? So that is very useful to note as well. So the interval of a third is a very important interval, whether it's major or minor. This links into major and minor chords, and it links into the major and minor scales as well. It's a very, very important interval, and it comes up quite a lot. Often when we hear people singing harmony of some sort. So one person is singing a melody line, another person is singing a different melody line. They are often singing a third apart, whether it's major or minor, right? And it usually changes based on the note that we're in. So that major third interval, if we're following the scale, right, there's a major third here, but if we started off of D, then we have D and F, that's a minor third. Then we have E and G, which is a minor third. F and A, major third, look at that. Then we have G and B, major third. Then we have A and C, minor third. Then we have B and D, minor third. And C and E once again. So the minor third interval based off of the G string, or the third string here, is just a half step down from the major third. So the minor third interval based off of the third string going to the B string here, or the second string, it looks like a major third on all the other strings. Kind of confusing, I know, but once we get used to it, then it becomes like second nature. Okay, so we have now covered the minor second, minor third, and major third. So now we're going to talk about a special interval called the perfect fourth. Now the perfect fourth is called the perfect fourth because it doesn't have a major or minor quality. Right? Now this is the interval that most of the guitar strings are tuned in, like we've talked about before. E to A is a perfect fourth away. A to D is a perfect fourth away. D to G is a perfect fourth away. G to B, it's a major third away. It's not a perfect fourth, but then B to E is a perfect fourth away. Now what happens if we flat that perfect fourth? Well, we just get a major third. So there is no minor fourth. If we have a major fourth, it doesn't quite sound like a major interval. So this is actually called a sharp four, or an augmented fourth. It's also known as a flat five or diminished fifth, and this interval is also called the tritone. So we have the perfect fourth. It looks like this almost everywhere on the fretboard. Right, it sounds a little bit weird when played together. Right, works off of the second and first strings as well. On the third and second string, we just have to move that one fret higher, and we get this look. So that's how to play the perfect fourth off of the third string. As mentioned before, then we have the tritone, also known as the augmented fourth or the diminished fifth. So the tritone, the reason why it's called a tritone is because it is the interval that is 3 whole steps up from any note. So if we're here on C, we go whole step to D, whole step to E, then a whole step to F sharp, right? 3 whole tones, tritone. Now it's a very, very important interval for many reasons. It adds a lot of tension into music, which can sound very nice when we then resolve it. Tension, then release. All right, so then from that tritone, which off of the third string will look like this, so just 1 fret higher than it looks everywhere else on the fretboard. Perfect fourth, augmented fourth, or diminished fifth. Then we have the perfect fifth interval. Much like the perfect fourth, it doesn't have a major or minor quality. You can flatten it, but then it becomes the augmented fourth or the diminished fifth, also known as the tritone, very special interval. So we call this another perfect interval. There is no major or minor quality. Right, so this interval itself, if played together, is a very useful interval with the guitar. This is what we call a power chord. So it's the most simple form of a chord that we do. I mean, we can play major thirds together, minor thirds together, if we want, but the perfect fifth interval very simple way of playing chords. You don't have to have a minor third or a major third. It doesn't really have a major or minor quality. Power chords sound especially good when we are going through a distorted guitar. If we're playing full chords, like through a distorted guitar signal, it can muddy the signal somewhat, right? So this is why in rock music and in punk rock and metal music and whatnot, when we're using a lot of distortion as an effect, we tend to stick to power chords or that perfect fifth interval. The notes are far enough away, we don't get as much bleed and muddy, we don't get as much bleed between the notes and a muddied signal. From that perfect fifth, we have a minor sixth. So now I'm skipping a string, right? It's C going to A flat. And it looks like this anywhere on the fretboard unless we are on the third string going to the second string. Unless we are on, say, the fourth string, and we're playing this going to the B string, right? So anything that includes the B string, that interval is going to have to be shifted up one fret. So that's a minor sixth, including the B string. And then if we even played this off of the third string, that's a minor sixth as well. Because we had to shift everything one fret higher for the B string, that still includes shifting it higher for the E string when we were starting on one of these lower strings. Okay, so minor sixth looks like this on these strings, but then once we get to the fourth string, we have to raise it one higher for the B. Still off of the third string, we still raise it one higher to accommodate for the B string change in tuning. Because of the fact that the E string is tuned a fourth away from B, right, it doesn't correct that we had to raise everything by one fret for the B string. So it still applies to the E string, even though we don't have to shift things even higher because of it. So from the minor sixth, one fret higher, obviously it's going to be a major sixth, right? Anytime that there is a minor interval, it implies the existence of a major interval, right? So here's the major sixth. Now, anything including the B string, it's going to look like this, which is a very convenient interval to play. Now, sixths can be used when singing harmony or writing harmonious guitar parts as well as we do with the thirds. Now, you can really write a harmony using any interval. So if you have a melody, right, you can harmonize it using almost any interval if we continue to move that interval away from all the notes in the melody. You can go a perfect fourth away. It'll have a specific sound. It might sound a little bit odd at times. You can go a perfect fifth away, which can be pretty common. But the most common ones are the major and minor thirds, the major and minor sixths, and probably the perfect octave above, which we will get to. So the major sixth looks like this, or like this off of the fourth string, including the B string, and playing from the third string, right, including the first string, it also looks like this. So from the major sixth, we then get a minor seventh. Now this minor seventh looks just like the major sixth off of these strings, right? So let's not get confused. Right, that flat seven. Off of here, right, we raise it by one fret. Same thing here. All right, so we had a minor seven, now we get a major seven. Very interesting sound. But knowing these seventh intervals are very important for when we start playing four-note chords, seventh chords, and whatnot. So we were taking simple triads and we were adding that seventh note to it to make it a four-note chord. Then when we get to the fourth string, have this looking interval. So we skip a string and then skip a fret. Right, same thing off of the third string. Right, and then finally, we arrive at the perfect octave. Now the perfect octave is finding the note in the higher register above it. So this is C. This is C off of the 5th fret on the 3rd string. This is what an octave would look like off of the 3rd string. We go to the 1st string and we go 1 fret higher than we did for the other octave. So we're skipping a string and we're skipping 2 frets. The same thing would go off of any octave being played off of the 4th string. Because we include the B string, we have to skip a string and skip 2 frets. So we skip a string and we go 3 frets higher. 1, 2, 3. Now the perfect octave is technically playing the exact same note, just in the next register above. And we can kind of hear that they should sound like they are the same note. And so all of these intervals that we have covered within one octave are actually present in the C major scale or any of the major scales. So it's not always going to work if we start off of that C note, because we have certain intervals that can be played using the notes of the C major scale off of that C note. But we can get all the other intervals if we start off of a different scale degree. So for instance, we have a major third here, and that is within the C major scale, C to D. But we're not going to have a minor second going from C to C sharp or D flat, because that's not within the major scale. However, in between these notes, E and F, we have a minor second interval. Now the same thing would be true for the major and minor thirds. Starting from C, if we go a third away in the scale, we'll arrive on a major third on E. We're not going to have E flat, that minor third. So this is a major third interval within the scale. However, if we start that on, say, the D note here of the major scale, and we go a third away, we will get a minor third interval. And the same will be true off of E. We'll get a minor third interval, a major third off of F, a major third off of G, a minor third off of A, and a minor third off of B, and then a major third once again. Now, the perfect fourth interval will appear in many places in the scale as well, from almost any note. We have C to F, D to G, and so on. The tritone, or the augmented fourth or diminished fifth interval, will appear in between F and B here. That's really the only place that it will appear within the major scale, is between the 4th and 7th scale degrees. Now, the perfect fifth can appear in many places as well. So the only place where it didn't really work is off of that B note. We get a diminished fifth, or that tritone once again. So that's from B going to F. So that's the opposite direction from F going to B. So off of C, we will not have a minor sixth interval, and off of D, we will also not have a minor sixth interval. But if we start off of this E note in the scale, the 3rd scale degree, and we go a sixth away in the scale, we're going to end up on C, which is a minor sixth away from E. Now, starting down on most of the other notes, we're going to get a major sixth interval. C to A is a major sixth. D to B is a major sixth, and so on. Now, if we start that off of C and we go a seventh away, we're going to get a major seventh interval. It's not going to be a minor seventh interval. However, if we start that off of D, we will get a minor seventh interval. That's D going to C. And E going to D will be a minor seventh. F going to E will be a major seventh. G going to F will be a minor seventh, and so on. And then we can have a perfect octave starting on any of these notes in the scale, and it will work out. So that is how all of these different intervals that we have gone over so far fit into the major scale, right? Okay, so we have covered all of the intervals within one octave. If we go beyond that octave, so we start playing notes from the lower octave into the notes above the octave, we can call those notes still the exact same intervals technically, right? So if we're playing from C to E here, it's technically a major third interval. That's a flat third or a minor third interval, right? This could be this major second interval from D, depending on what we want to do. Technically, because we are in the next register, this would be called a major ninth interval. So we go from the perfect octave, or the 8, right? And then if we go to the major second above that, it can be called the ninth, right? The third could be a major 10th, right? We don't often call it a major 10th, but it can be called that. Then we would have the perfect 11, right? The sharp 11, or the tritone. Then we have the 13th. Well, we can have the 12 here, which is the perfect 5th, or the 13th, or flat 13th, which is basically just the major or minor 6th in the higher register. So those higher intervals come in handy when we are playing chords that include many of these intervals. So we can have a C major chord where we add the major 7 and the major 2, but if we are adding the major 2 and we are including that major third interval, to not confuse it with a C suspended 2, where we are replacing the third with the major second. If we include both the major third and the major second, then this would be called a C major 9 chord. So the major 9 part implies that we have the major 7th and the major 9 in it as well. If that's a little bit confusing, that's okay, because we are going to go over chord theory in future lessons as we talk about how to build chords like that one and many others. So it is very important for every guitar player to have an understanding of these shapes of intervals on the fretboard and how to accommodate for that B string change as well. These intervals come up everywhere. They are how we build our chords and how we can add or subtract notes from our chords as well to create more complex chord shapes and voicings, which is really, really important if we want to level up our guitar playing. You'll hear musicians and teachers talking about these intervals all the time. So it is absolutely necessary for every player to have an understanding of what these intervals are and how they look on the fretboard and how to make them off of any single note. Okay, I think that is plenty of information for this video. Thanks again for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep an eye open for future videos as we get further and further into more advanced guitar theory and music theory. Also keep an eye open for my future super courses, which are going to be talking about how to improvise creatively and how to compose your own songs. If you would like to take private lessons from me, you can go to my website at waxwingmusicstudio.com for further information, and you can contact me directly at wax.wing.musicstudio@gmail.com. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.